Jill, there's 4 of us. That's a quorum, correct?
I'm just double checking YouTube's working. Give me 1 second.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
So we've got you, Alicia, Andy, Julie, and Dean. We have 5.
Okay.
Woo!
Let's go ahead and start at 6 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everybody to our Planning Commission meeting tonight on March 4th. Appreciate all who have joined on YouTube, and we're grateful for your participation. We'd like to begin this meeting tonight with an opening prayer, a reading, or expression of thought, and I'll ask for a volunteer for that, please.
I'll be happy to do that, Keith. This is Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
Our dear kind Heavenly Father, we're thankful this day as citizens of the community of Pleasant View for the opportunity to gather. We're thankful for this wonderful community that we're able to live in. We're thankful for this beautiful country that we have the opportunity to raise our families. We ask you this night to bless us and guide us, that we'll have thy blessings to lead us in the right opportunities to make the right decisions for our fellow citizens of this community. We ask you to watch the leaders of this land, of this community, and bless the armed forces of our nation, that they be protected. We ask these things humbly this night in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner Neff. We'll forego the Pledge of Allegiance, even though I know we're all pledged to the flag. It's just hard with the electronic meeting. So this time, I need to read, or no, this time, commissioners, you've looked at the packet. If there are any conflicts of interest, if you could please divulge those at this point. If not, then we'll, let's see, I have this funky thing I have to read. Excuse the terminology. I don't know if funky's a word, but in accordance with Utah State Code, Section 52-4-207, Section 4, Paragraph A, I, Keith Priest, Pleasant View City Planning Commission Chair, hereby make the following declaration: that a state of national and state emergency has been declared in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and that Governor Herbert and Governor Cox has extended the emergency declaration for Weber County issued on July 24th and extending to March 4th, and that state code has been amended to allow for the conduct of electronic meetings in an emergency without an anchor location, and that the Planning Commission Chair shall read or cause to be read at each electronic meeting the reasons and facts behind the declarations, and therefore Pleasant View City Planning Commission shall hold electronic meetings as provided for in state code. Signed by myself, Keith D. Priest. Thank you very much. At this time, I'll now entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the January 28th and February 4th Planning Commission.
And Jeff, just so you know, you're not an alternate today.
Motion to approve. This is Dean.
Dean, you wish to make an approval for the agenda and the minutes of the 28th and February 4th?
That's a big 10-4.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Stokes, we have a second.
I will second that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Farr. Any opposed, say aye. Okay, let's move on then. First item, when I get there. Okay, is a discussion recommend a decision to City Council, a preliminary 8-lot subdivision named Osage, I guess, Court, located at the southeast corner of Highway 89 and 1325 West, parcel 19-207-0001. Jill?
All right. So hopefully you can see my screen. This is where it's located. We had the rezone not too long ago, so it's that parcel on the southeast corner of Highway 89 and 1325. It was rezoned to the RE15, so it's gonna blend really nicely with Westview subdivision. Sorry, my brain's kind of fogged. It's been going today. So there we go. It's kind of blurry, but you can see the layout. It looks really nice. There's 8 lots. I don't know if you can see this little parcel A is for the detention, which everything has been sized according to the subdivision and the previous agreement with Westview. They did calculate some of the detention pond for that parcel. That's why it's a little bit smaller. But all of the 8 lots have 100-foot frontage, which is great. It meets the size requirements for the RE15 size. It meets the cul-de-sac requirement length, and there's no access on the Highway 89, so I mean it meets all of our. Hold on, we're getting feedback. Hold on.
There we go. That was me. Sorry.
There we go.
There we go. That's good.
So Jill, does this access 1325?
Yes,
That's the only access in this subdivision, correct?
there we go. So there's 1325 right here on
Okay.
that side. There's no access onto Highway 89, which that's what we would require because there's access right there. They had enough frontage on 1325 that they could do the 2 parcel or the 2 lots plus the road. So it meets all the requirements that we've had. There were some red lines on the plat, nothing major or else it wouldn't have came to you guys. And there were some red lines on the stormwater quality report, which they've been between when everything went out to you guys, they've been working diligently trying to get that all taken care of. And so staff is really recommending approval. Anything that's, redlined, we can take care of as staff. Everything else meets everything else that we've required. So that's where our staff sits.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Commissioners, any questions for Jill or the applicant? I see is with us, Johnny Hanson. Any questions?
Yeah, Keith, this is Andy. If I might ask a question either for Jill, just to help me understand for sure the location A for the water retention, just for my understanding, if that's part of the retention, is that take up part of the 100? Is
No.
that part of lot A or part of lot 1?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you brought that up.
Oh, is
So
that-
lot 1 is its own lot. There's a
Yes.
small sliver it's considered parcel A. So it's its own parcel. They won't be able to build or do anything on it because it's its own parcel. It's the detention portion.
But how wide is that? That doesn't eat up into their 100 feet of, and then with that question then, who is that city deeded in and the city has to take care of it, or who will maintain that strip? How wide is that strip?
That's a good question. Let me pull it up. I've got it right here. There's no HOA, so it would be the city.
Because that could be an eyesore for the city, because that's a good little main thoroughfare entryway.
Yes, and our public works staff is amazing. They maintain as much as they can with everything. It does not touch any of the 100 footage. of lot one. Again, lot one is its own, it has its frontage on that. But with that, it would be, we would maintain that and take care of it. And it is 20 feet in width along that Osage Court Road. So as you can tell, it's 3,612 square feet as a whole parcel.
But that runs along 1325 and lot one.
Yes, it does.
But
And lot one would not be.
Is not included.
I'm sorry?
That 20 feet is not included in the 100-foot, or it is included in the 100-foot?
So lot one has its own parcel, and so it has to have that 100-foot frontage. Parcel A is completely separate from lot one. It doesn't touch their 100-foot frontage, nothing.
so does that just become a big divot? I mean, does that become a big hole in the ground that becomes an eyesore, weed fest, just a mowing ditch?
It'll be a detention. So if you look at all these other subdivisions that have, I guess you would call it a huge ditch or a hole, this one will just be a narrower one. It will still be maintained the same way like all these other ones. And we'll have to have a way to flow into the system. So there will be a head gate or orifice, whatever Tyson's group will require. And that's all taken care of between engineering and public works along with the developer.
Do you have a better drawing of that detention? I can't see where it begins or where it stops.
It's a smaller piece, but yes, I can pull something up. Just give me just a minute.
Keith, the one in the packet seems to be a little bit clearer, and if you, at least it is for on my end at least.
No, that's good. I
It's
wish I would have thought of that.
sorry. Here we go. Now let me share my screen. Come on. Sorry, my computer's going a little slow. Okay, let me blow this up. It's just because you guys are watching, it's going slow. Sorry. There we go. So here you can see it a little bit clearer. So here's parcel A,
Okay,
which is completely separate from lot one.
understand. Okay, that is a lot clearer. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So, I mean, you can
So the
see
100,
it's
so
right
the
there.
frontage, I'm sorry, the frontage on number one then is 119 feet, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And
So Commissioner Neff, did that answer your question? Are you okay with that? I mean, the city will have to maintain it and they're
Yes,
aware that they can.
The
Go ahead.
only unfortunate thing is there's no big things like Eagle projects anymore to help set that up to make that a beautified project. I don't know. That's kind of one of the entryways, I guess, to our city. And so I'm not quite sure. It'd be interesting to hear what our city workers will set that up, or I don't know if the developer will help create that into a nice looking place to start with. It'll be interesting, but I know that's not necessarily a requirement.
but that is a good question, Andy. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So let me ask Johnny, just for that question, do you have any intention, I know it's not your responsibility, but in your mind's eye, do you see
Well,
how that will look or what your recommendations might be for how that'll look with your development?
Up.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, it's the entrance to our subdivision, and so I thought we'd just grass it, or, I don't know if we want to put rocks, but I'd like it to be very nice. And we're happy to put grass in it if the city wants to do that, but Jill would have to tell us maybe the cobble rocks is better. I don't know, Jill, what do you envision there?
That part's not me, because I don't want to tell you wrong. Sorry, John.
I'm very concerned that it looks nice. I've got to sell those lots.
I know.
So let me clarify the question, because if the city's going to maintain it, then Johnny, I don't think it's your responsibility to do anything there. I think it's the city's.
It is
Or
his,
am I wrong, Jill?
it is his responsibility to install and start.
So the city will make a recommendation as to what that should and will look like?
Yes. So how it works is when it goes through preliminary and everything's done and taken care of, the construction documents, which the detention pond is part of that. It'll go through, it'll be approved, maybe if there's some recommendations or anything that we have to do on that end. And that's a conversation between the DRC group and Johnny, his group. And then we'd have a meeting before he starts construction. And so there's a lot more than just the preliminary aspect before construction actually happens.
Hey, this
Okay,
is
so
Jim.
then-
I've got some questions about those retention areas, mainly because I don't know a thing about them. Are there specifications that determine how much the depression should be, and how do they determine that? By an analysis of flow in the past? It's a
So-
mystery to me.
No, these are great questions. Well, how everything is determined is it's based on how much a 100-year storm or an 80-year storm would be, along with the geotech test. Because if the water table's high, you're gonna have to figure out and how to get a detention pond to take on that much and be able to flow at a certain amount. So there's a lot of equations and a lot of data that we have to gather before that is determined on how big and then how big the lots are and how much road. So a lot of stuff goes into it.
I'll bet the one that's next to the admin building is really effective. When we get a big storm, you could almost run a jet ski on it, and yet when the storm subsides, it looks like just a nice grassy area.
You are right. They can be very effective if they're done correctly.
Well, there's a difference though, retention and detention. The retention flows by a metered outlet into the storm system. A detention just subterranean flows, correct, Jill?
So a detention holds the water and it slowly lets it go, where a retention pond holds it and hopefully it's able to go back into the ground.
So I don't think that's correct what you just said, because if you're saying there's a retention, then where is that water, where is that going from the retention pond?
The
the
retention is
detention.
it's retaining the water. It's not letting go. So it's holding it in that spot. So these are detentions, most of them. Sorry.
Okay, so where is the water going? It's being metered somewhere, right?
Yeah, let me pull it up again. Let's see.
Because I understand that there's not a storm drain running on 1325, is there?
There's an outlet right here and it will go through into our storm drain system. So we do have storm drains that do go underneath Highway 89 and into other areas. So everything
Oh, I
kind
know.
of flows.
So I know that the church put in a storm drain underneath Highway 89 for the construction of the church. I'm just asking, will this subdivision tie into that drain line?
It ties in, yes, it's a city storm drain, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jill, this is Dean.
Yes.
Kind of going along with what Jim and what Andy have been talking about. Is there a different method that we could use? Maybe doing the retention on the individual lots to where the city doesn't have long-term cost of maintenance and all that? Is there a different design that could be implemented?
There are some subdivisions, for example, Orchards number 3, or North Orchards, which is just on the corner of 1,000 and 3,200. They don't
Yeah.
have enough of an area to do a detention pond, or even Omen Estates. So that's why they have to do that. But each owner has to sign a long-term stormwater agreement, and they have to keep that there. And it's a lot harder because as residents come in, they might want to landscape different and then fill in that little spot. So it depends on what's going to be best for everybody, depends on the size. And so a lot more goes into it.
So, Jill,
We keep,
going on Dean's question, if there's not an HOA and the city is responsible for it, there's not another option, right? It's an HOA responsibility or it's a city responsibility. Correct?
Correct. But detention ponds, for example, Deer Crest is an HOA, but we maintain it because we have to make sure it works. We can't necessarily just depend on an HOA, and if they don't do it right, we're on the hook for it. Does that make sense?
It
So
makes sense for the drainage, but not for the landscaping. I mean, you wouldn't be responsible, the city wouldn't be responsible to make sure it's cobbled or grass and mowed and all that if it's under an HOA.
To an extent, depends on what Public Works and engineer decides.
Okay. So Dean, I guess we just have a lot of things that we cover regardless.
yeah,
To kind of help you guys understand, as a city, we have so many things that we have to answer to the state. So if we say, okay, here's an HOA, this is a detention pond, it's filtering through our system, and we go to the HOA, and they have no clue what they're doing. They're doing what they can because that's what they know, where the city has all the resources, we have the knowledge, we go to classes, we have certifications on how to make sure it works and it's working accurately. We can make sure it's actually working and not flooding people down the road.
Okay.
So, I
Any
mean,
other questions,
there's
commissioners?
pros and cons to everything.
cool.
Any questions? If not, then we'll.
Seems
entertain a
very
motion.
straightforward to me.
Okay, I agree. It looks pretty straightforward to me as well. So this time I'll entertain a motion that we recommend approval or denial to the city council on the preliminary A-lot subdivision named, am I saying that right? What is it? Osage?
Yes,
Okay.
you've got it, you've got it.
Osage Court located at the southeast corner of Highway 89 and 1325 West, parcel 19-207-0001. This is a recommendation to the city council for approval or denial.
This is Jim. I'll go ahead and make a motion for approval, and I think there are a few conditions stated in the summary. As long as those are met, I think we'd be fine.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Okay, Commissioner Bullenberg has seconded. Commissioner Cummings' motion. Any opposed, say aye. Okay, motion carries. Johnny, thank you and good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right. So a public hearing, this is interesting. Jill, you're gonna have to help me with this one. Since it's a discussion and recommend a decision to city council and it is a public hearing, do we let you go through your spiel first or do we just open it up for a public hearing at this time?
Really, the presentation, it hopefully you were able to read it. what I can tell you is, one, the reason why we have these standards is you guys understand what you guys want in the city. You guys have gone through the design, we've gone through a lot of things. So you want to have a specific look. And so that's part of what those standards are. We want to make sure we have the look that we want. We want to make sure things are installed properly, that it can last a long time, and it can handle what other items that could possibly in the future be added to light poles. For example,
Okay, well,
who
let's
knows
do
with
this.
this 5G, it could start popping up on light poles or whatever. So we have to make sure, with, for example, the roads, we have to have standards for the roads. We want to make sure it is what we want and to the design that we require.
Okay, Jill, I'm going to turn it to you for your presentation, and then we'll open it up for a public hearing.
Okay. So, just so you are aware, our committee consisted of Bill at the time. He was our city administrator. So anything going forward, it will be Amy. And it was also Dana, the city engineer, Tyson, the public works director. I was involved. Laurie, the city recorder, and she's also a resident, just to kind of see her perspective, and also the utility admin, Debbie. So we wanted to make sure we had a good, well-rounded group to get perspectives. And we went through multiple meetings and got some ideas of what light poles, and we had companies come in and kind of explain the different sizes and what will be able to hold certain weights and things like that. And what triggered this whole discussion is, did we want to have Rocky Mountain Power continue to be responsible for all of the light posts? Their options on what we want, what they would allow us to have were very minimal. Also, Alicia, weren't you in on it too? That's why I thought Alicia was in there too. And she actually helped with some of the GISing and kind of the map of areas, correct, Alicia?
Yeah, it actually was my thesis for geography when I graduated. So awesome.
So needless to say, we went the rounds on what kind of look we wanted, but really what we wanted to have allowed. And on the whole planning aspect and the public work aspect, we had to look at what's required for main intersections like 600 and Highway 89, the lights that oversee the actual intersection have to be a lot farther out and be able to cover more area versus what's in the city. So again, very extensive. We've been having meetings for quite a long time. And Dana was able to look and kind of put everything together. The idea is that we would have our own design, and we would have an electrician, which that would be down the road, and another discussion, be able to help maintain and help install those, because our public works aren't necessarily electricians, so we want to be safe and compliant with everything. But we also wanted to make sure the responsible party, for example, all these existing ones we would take care of in a later date, but these subdivisions that come in, who would be responsible for putting those in and who would pay for those? Does that make sense? So that's in the standards. I'm hoping
So
you
wait a minute. Was that a question or a statement?
No,
You
it's a
said
statement.
who would. So the
It's-
statement is the developer would put those in.
Yes, and who would be responsible for it? So all of this information is in the standards. So I'm hoping that was one key point why I sent you guys the packet so quick, So you'd have more than enough time to hopefully be able to read through it. It goes down to the actual connections of, what type of connection, what bolts and everything, because again, we want this to last as long as possible, because we don't want to have to replace it quickly, because then the residents are going to have to be paying for a lot more of it. So again, oh, come on. There we go. Talks about the quality control, restoration, the painting. I mean, we had to make sure we wanted to get it down to exactly what we wanted. So hopefully you guys can see, if it's not in there, they can do what they want. And the same with zoning. If we're not specific with zoning, they can do what they want. And in order to get what we want, we had to make sure we were very specific with the pole foundation. Again, installation of it, the type of pole, the type of nuts. Hopefully you were able to read your packets, because they are very detailed. And I gave you the actual standards so you can see it. Is there any questions for me?
I'm doing my Evelyn Wood reading right now, so.
Jill, in the process of reading through those specifications, I must confess, I've never put up a light pole in my life, but it looks like it's so thorough as far as design, resiliency, and safety. I can't imagine that they've forgotten anything.
We tried to be very thorough, and Dana did a wonderful job in typing it for us.
So the color is 3,800 Kelvin. We're talking about LED, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks like you've done a great job putting this together.
We have an awesome staff.
Okay, this time I'll open it. Well, first of all, commissioners, have any questions for Jill on the standard of lighting for the city? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion that we open this discussion up for a public hearing.
I'll make a motion. We open a public hearing at this time.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that. This is Dean.
Hey, thank you, Commissioner Stokes, and we're now in a public hearing. Jill, are there any comments from YouTube?
I'm actually watching on YouTube. Sorry, this is Amy maybe, and I don't see anything yet. I just do want to wait for a second because there's a little bit of a delay on there.
Okay.
But there's 2 viewers watching right now, and I know I'm one of them. So
I'm the other one.
oh. I don't anticipate many public comments this evening.
Jill, no delay on your questions.
No, that's nothing.
And this was properly noticed. I'm just letting you all know.
So were there any comments to you, Jill? You did notice it. Nobody commented from the city. Okay.
I did read this, and it did look extremely thorough, and I'm going to have to defer to the Jeff and Dean and anybody else that has any background in this, because to me, I hats off to the detail of this packet. So any detail that Jeff or Dean that's dealt with any of these type of things, I'm going to defer to somebody, but I applaud the detail of this.
I second that. I'm involved with this all the time, and the detail they put in the specifications is very detailed and spells things out very accurately. So thank you. Okay, if there's no comments from the public, we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close it.
Okay, Commissioner Stokes, we have a second.
I'll second.
Second that.
Okay, Commissioner Lund, second. Okay, we're now out of the public hearing. Commissioners, any other questions or comments? If not, we'll entertain.
I think that this is going to make the city look great. And I mean, it's like the little details that really pop and it's going to look great. And I'm excited about this. This is a wonderful thing for our city.
Okay, so I'm gonna go personal here, can I? Jill, I don't know
Sure.
I'm just gonna ask, what is the legalese, if you will? I live in an 11 home subdivision. Inside the cul-de-sac, we have 3 streetlights. Currently, each streetlight is hooked up to one of the homes, and they're all turned off right now. So our cul-de-sac is dark, even though we have the street lighting there.
Wait a minute.
We're
You said,
supposed to have an HOA. We don't have an HOA. So who's responsible, or is there any responsibility? Do we just leave it dark?
I'm confused. How did they get a light pole? So the switch is in a house?
So the switch is in the
Main breaker.
power panel. It's on the breaker panel on the exterior of the home.
To be honest, I don't know how that happened. That's
And
just,
it's okay. I mean, it's a nominal amount, but the homeowners don't want the light because most of the bedrooms are facing the front. So that bright light disturbs their sleep apparently. So
that can be a safety hazard, I would think.
Isn't that unusual or strange, though, that you would have a homeowner in charge of controlling the lamp lights?
Well,
No, that's
it would be an HOA though.
Well, Keith, may I ask a question?
Dean has something too.
Oh, sorry.
no, you're okay. Sarah, go ahead.
So you live in an HOA, you pay dues, right?
No. So it's supposed to be. So in our closing document, we signed that we would be part of an HOA, but the HOA was never created.
Okay, so then the person who has the power to turn on the light, what the heck? They can't do that. That's a city-owned light. That light, the city decides whether or not it's on or off, not them.
Dean,
No.
sorry, I said Deanie. Dean has
It's
some
not city owned.
It's not true.
That's right. Whoever said it's not true is correct.
Well, why? If it's not an HOA, it's not a private road and it's not a private.
It's supposed to be an HOA.
It was
So-
presented.
The homeowners that we didn't create. Go ahead, Dean. As a developer, help.
It had to have been presented and approved as an HOA for the city to allow the lights to be hooked up that way. And then the fact that the HOA was either abolished or never assembled and formally presented to the city, that's how it all became a private network of streetlights. They're not owned by the city, they're owned by a non-existent HOA, which effectively makes that streetlight the property of the property owner that it sits on and is powering it. So
How do we
it's
go
not
how do we
city.
get around that then? Because if that's a public need, you know what I mean though?
Yeah, but it's not a public need. There's no state ordinance or government ordinance that says you have to have a street light in front of every 3 houses. That doesn't exist. So if it's a convenience and you can do that, it's like requiring everybody to turn their porch lights on. Why don't we just do that and not put any street lights up? We'll just issue a city ordinance that says at 10 p.m. everybody has to turn their front porch light on, and if your light's not on, we're going to give you a fine, right?
Well,
That's not a good idea.
And that would be a nightmare to enforce.
you guys just went through the standards though. If there's I know it's post, it's you can't go back retroactively, but if in moving forward with standards of creating streetlights or whatever else, when you create subdivisions, then streetlights are a requirement, but not, I guess, at the time that was created.
So I guess just Amy, maybe to pull us back a little bit, we can do some research and look at the individual situation and maybe some possible solutions, and working with the property owners or work with our public works director. He's fantastic, and see if there's some type of solutions or options we can pursue to make these improvements, and maybe some ways for the city to take on the lighting structures. I feel like we're deterring a little bit from the main purpose of the discussion, but I think it is a very good point that was made, and we'd love to look into it for you.
And to kind of go off of that as well, we for those that are HOAs that have those private infrastructure, we can't go and remove and change that. That's gonna be a discussion that we have to have with that HOA or that group.
So the group was never created, so we've never really had an HOA, even though it's supposed to.
So then
So-
we would have to talk to your neighborhood.
So I've talked to all the neighbors and they've all said they've turned it off intentionally, and I've approached them about having an HOA. It'd only be $11 a month, and that would cover the frontage. So we're just east of the city building.
I know exactly where
Yeah, so if you notice the north side, the homeowners took it upon themselves to remove all the shrubs and everything and put grass. And the other side, they don't do anything. So a few of us go down a few times a year and we clean it all up. Anyways, it doesn't belong in this meeting, but it maybe does belong in this meeting as a homeowner with a utility light that should provide safety. What can happen, Amy? Can the city approach the homeowner and say it's recommended for public safety or not?
Well, and I think we need to do a little bit of research. I'll be honest, Keith, or Chair, excuse me, that was disrespectful of me. But I think we can we can look and do a little bit of research to see if there's ways for the city to possibly connect in and take on that utility, or what our options are there. But I think absolutely, to Jill's point, working with anyone who's in that area that would have been part of that HOA is definitely a first step, and trying to work, because I'm sure a lot of you feel it would be a great asset, and I understand individual homeowners that don't want to take that burden on to themselves to pay for it. So I think we could do some research and look at some possible solutions, and I'm glad that you brought it up. Frankly, we're happy to help you work through it. So I don't think it's bad that it came up in this meeting. I just don't, unfortunately, think we can resolve it in this meeting.
No, I agree. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No, thank you.
And I know going forward, the developer will put the lights in and then turn it over to the HOA, and that's fine. That's how it should be.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. And so Keith, just because Jill has your contact information, you'll probably be the first one we connect with. Sorry to begin this revolution. So
That's okay. That's fine.
lucky for you, huh?
I just like to see the lights on for safety, but
No, and
the
it's
thing that's
good
funny-
to have these items brought forward. We so appreciate our planning commission and all of you that come onto these. And if there are different things that come up that we can help improve, absolutely, please engage us. So it's on my list now, and we'll be in touch.
So one of the big concerns I hear from Pleasant View, from residents and people driving through, is it's so dark. There are no streetlights. And that is a problem. So here we move into an area where streetlights are going to be required for safety and security, and then they're not hooked up. And I'm thinking, well, that mutes the point, right? Even the one on the intersection of 500 and 3450, if I understand right, that should be a city-owned light because it's in an intersection, but I think it's part of the HOA as well. So if we wanted to turn that off as well, it could be turned off. And the whole idea of this, I think this ordinance is to provide lighting as residents drive through the city, correct?
Well, and there's
Maybe.
just so much theft, and we talk about it all the time, how they come here to steal stuff. I don't know. Do I necessarily want a street light out in front of my house? No. But do I want more lights? Yes.
We're part of the problem, not the solution.
So-
Ashley.
That's me.
So gearing back to what we're here for is the standards, and going forward as the standard, if the city council or you guys recommend approval to the city council approves it, that will then trigger us to look at a much bigger approach to getting everything to the standards that we are hoping to have as staff. This is what we're hoping.
Now, Jill, these particular streetlights, I know these newer ones are made so that the light diffuses downwards more
Correct.
than out. We have talked about previously how we want to preserve more of a dark sky environment in Pleasant View. So will you just maybe address those two issues? And I know it's in the document, but maybe in just common people's words.
It
would
is.
address
It's actually in there. And then, for example, we had to put everything in actual Word form, not necessarily just picture, because everything has to, if we just do a picture, then it can be interpreted many different ways. But if it's an actual verbiage form, this is exactly what we want. And it's harder to interpret it differently than what's there on paper. That was, Alicia was there, and that was something we talked extensively, dark sky compliance, and with that, would we need more, or would we need less lights? And that's one thing Alicia was able to do, is to look at everything, with the lights, how far out. And so we did some major, data collecting and just questions and concerns and everything. So that was one of the big things that we brought up, and we made sure it was in there.
I'm actually really excited about it. Things like that really add to the community overall. When you look at the cost of it, remind me on the cost difference, what we have now compared to what it will be, the cost to the city, or
the cost would actually be through city council. That's something that we discussed with that group, just because of the budget and things like that. In the long run, this will be better for us. I will be honest. In the long run, it'll be better. We'll be able to maintain things rather than having to call Rocky Mountain Power and wait for them to be able to come out. And we'll be able to have more of a control of what type of look we want and the feel. And so in the long run, it's going to be better for us.
yes, and it falls within that budget allowance. And even though upfront the cost may be a little more, you're saving the cost in the maintenance and other issues that go into it.
The new lights are gonna save energy. We do actually, I know Pleasant View is dark, but my research on my map showed that there are places of major light pollution, and there's a lot of light that's escaping upwards that we don't need. We want it to come down. And so the new lights are actually going to prevent a lot of overuse of energy that's just escaping that we don't need. And it's going to help it look better. It's going to be dark sky compliant. It's going to be awesome. It's great. And it's going to save money in the long run. Like, it's going to save.
Yeah. Alicia, can you explain, are they like cute little, like, are they like the cute, are they really tall and they look like?
It depends on
Like
where
what we have now, that's for sure.
They're cute. Like, my husband was just mentioning, because he's listening. Well, he was. Anyway, that he likes the look when they're like shorter. He said 12 foot. I have no idea. 12-foot little lights that are shorter down, and then you can hang like beautiful flowers from them and stuff.
How are we gonna have something like that on Pleasant Drive?
The size of the light, it changes between the type of area. For example, if it's within the neighborhoods, it would be one way, versus the major intersections. They have a requirement of what has to be lit, how tall, and so they change depending on where it's at.
I guess they'll look better. They're gonna look a lot better. They're cute. They're good.
I'm excited.
We spent a lot of time looking through designs and trying to figure out what we thought would be best, didn't we, Jill?
Yes.
So commissioners, can I put a plug in for each one of you and a pat on the back? This is exactly why planning commissions are needed. So as cities go forward, all of the things, all the amenities that we want, that we expect, that we hope our city will have, are discussed and approved by city council and adopted, and that's the purpose. Because clearly 50 years ago or 40 years ago or 30 years ago or 20 years ago, nobody really cared. about a street light, who paid for it, who's responsible for it, if it's even needed. Now the discussion goes forward. So thank you. That's the importance of a planning commission. There's my plug. Okay, with that, we'll entertain a motion then that we recommend approval or denial to the city council to adapt the lighting ordinance as specified in the documentation.
Commissioner, I would make a motion that we recommend approval for this lighting recommendation as presented.
Thank you.
Is
We
that
have a motion? We have a motion from Commissioner Farr. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
And a second from Commissioner Bolenbrook. All opposed or any opposed, say aye. Thank you. Motion carries, and we'll recommend city council approval of your good hard work. Alicia, thank you very much for being part of this.
May I quickly say to Alicia, I have not only great respect for Jill, but I have a lot of respect for Alicia in watching out on things like this in regards to the ecology of it and just the look, aesthetics. You are actually very concerned about those issues. I've seen that before when we all went to that meeting in Moab, that this is a passion that you have. And so it's actually very reassuring to me to have had you involved in that, and Jill and all of you involved, because I know how much you care about the city and what your interests and passions are. So thank you.
Thank you. That was very kind. Okay, moving on to commissioner communications. Commissioners, you have anything you'd like to discuss at this time? Dean's beard or anything?
Super cute, huh?
Super.
I call it my minky.
It's looking good. I like the gray streak on one side.
Yeah, I work on that every day.
But yeah, naturally, right?
Yeah. I got a comment about the streetlight thing, and this is kind of a gee whiz thing that I thought about bringing up before we motioned to do anything, but the 5G cell phone networks and stuff that they're rolling out, they're finding that they need the towers a lot closer together, and they're finding that putting them on streetlights is actually helping a stronger, more stable network. And I'm kind of thinking out loud, would it be to our benefit to talk to a cellular or cellular carrier about covering the cost for an additional conduit to maybe enhance their network, enhance our service in our area, and lower our costs?
That's all in there. So we knew it was going to be coming sooner or later, and we wanted to be ahead of the game. So in there, it's specified, because if we aren't specific, we don't want them to decide where to put it and then have issues down the road. Like if they want to put it at the very top, is that going to be aesthetically pleasing? Or are we going to have issues with the poles because there's going to be a lot up there, being able to transmit everything? I mean, so that was a lot of stuff that we talked about, and we wanted to make sure everything was covered. And that way we don't have to do this again in a few months because we didn't think about it. So thank you.
So,
What would that look like? You're a developer, you've seen these recommendations. What would that look like to put a repeater on a light pole?
well, the technology keeps getting smaller and smaller all the time. So I'm going to say that it can go anywhere from half of a baseball size up to what you see hanging off of the cell towers now, where you've got the 18-inch by 6-foot panels and stuff. So you're not going to see that with the 5G network. The 5G network that they're rolling out, and I'm sure the next generation, whatever they're going to call that, is going to be more of a nanotechnology. What you're probably going to see in our kids or maybe our grandkids' lifetime is when they put the entire internet network over the power lines themselves. And so every light fixture, every light switch, every outlet is going to become a hotspot or an access point that you can connect to wirelessly. But that's a little ways away before that technology actually is readily available for consumers, but it's on its way.
I think we're pretty close to being there. I can drive almost anywhere in the no man land and I'm connected to the internet in my vehicle.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but that's all still old school point to point, essentially radio frequency. The new stuff is going to go over the power lines themselves. So
It's
it's a
gonna
little ways. Yeah.
So,
My thought was just requiring an additional conduit, requiring a separate point so that we're not having to allow somebody to come in a directional bore, dig up utilities, that kind of stuff, kind of future proof it and maybe absorb some of the costs. So that's all I was.
we figured if we can be ahead of the game, give options for it,
Yeah.
but not totally eliminate it because it's gonna come and it's gonna be needed. Like you
Cool.
said.
I'm trying to look through the spec. Are you requiring spare wire through the conduit?
Mhm.
Normally that's in the spec in case something happens where, like Dean just mentioned, if you have to tie into it or if something breaks, you don't have to rerun the wire. You can just connect to the spare.
I'd have to look further into that part and call my buddy Dana, she can, yeah. I asked her to put it into Jill terms because she's like a doctor of the engineering world.
So I'm looking through the spec and I'm not seeing that, but I think it's probably there. I think Dana would add that.
Yeah,
It's kind of
Dana's very
common,
thorough.
you know.
Am I behind the times or didn't ever once people were worried about 5G to like mess up our brainwaves or our unborn children or something like that?
Only those who believe that today was inauguration day. So
We're not gonna believe, or we're not gonna discuss that.
thank
'Cause
you.
everyone has different views, we're just not gonna discuss it. So, thank you.
Ashley, you're good. I'm just joking. I know what you're saying. I remember when it went to 4G, we had the same concerns. And next year it'll be 6G and there'll be the same concerns. And it's called technology and we're moving forward and it's not stopping. So we just don't worry about your brain. It'll be just fine. My
I think the
opinion.
main point is to make sure that it has capability for future technology, the same anymore when you wire a home, that you are wiring it and preparing the home for things to come. And it sounds like you've already been aware of that and you're factoring it in. So that's
As best as we can right now.
as best as we can. And the fact is, maybe down the line, the technology will be such that they won't even need things the way we know it now. It will all be, airwaves.
That's what Dean mentioned, and that's exactly how it will be. If everything's ran over the power lines, and there will be no need for a lot of the stuff that we're pulling. So,
Yeah.
okay. Any other communications commissioners? And I have to apologize. I was just joking about the 5G. I know that's a concern to many people, but I also remember a few years ago, 4G was a big concern too. It just happens. Okay, anything else? No, then we'll move on to staff communications. Jill, Amy, have anything for me?
Amy, you go first because, yeah.
I don't have anything this evening, so I'm just gonna be following up on that item that came up this evening. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm gonna do a quick training, really quick. I know, Dean, you're limited on your time, so we're gonna be really quick and very.
Jill, when you're, or I had a few things to say when you're done, or if you wanted me to say it before.
What do you want, Chief? Or
It's up to you, Mr. Chairman.
So Dean, how much time do you have?
I'll drop off if I have to.
That's what I was gonna recommend. If you have to go, just go ahead and go. Drop
Mine
off.
won't
And
take
that-
very
that
long.
applies to all of us. So go ahead. Sarah, go first, then Jill.
Oh, are you sure?
Okay, changed my mind. Jill, go first, then Sarah.
Okay, really quick. Here, I'm gonna share this. Hopefully, I have heard from a good chunk. This sheet, I don't think I've gotten, Ashley or Dean, have you been able to read this?
Yes.
Ashley, did you say yes? Ashley, the yes. Dean, have you read this?
I have not.
Okay, really quick, we're just gonna go quickly through it. I emailed it to you. It talks about open and public meetings. This is the one piece we have to do every year, really quick. So if I hurry and go through this, we can count you as done, okay, Dean? And whoever else that might not have done it. So the Open Public Meetings Act, you are a body, a public body. And again, we have to train on this once a year, and it's that time again. So public body is required to provide public notice of a meeting at least 24 hours in advance. That does not include the notices that I have to send out, FYI. Those are completely different. This is the actual agenda. I have to be able to post it no less than 24 hours, which again, most of ours are not emergency type based meetings. That's more city council. It's just saying that we have to abide by state law, which for reference, it is 52-4-102 and -202, 203. All the meetings have to be recorded, and there's got to be meeting minutes. So that's why we're on Zoom and it's recorded every time. And that's why, for example, Ashley, I was not writing you off with the whole 5G. I just have to be careful on what's said. I know everyone has, their concerns, and there's those people that don't have any concerns. We're just trying to be neutral, if that makes sense, and whatnot. So remember, everything is recorded, and everything that is said within these meetings are public records. So if someone wanted to come and pull a specific meeting and they wanted to watch or listen or read the meeting minutes, they can actually have that information, and they can listen to what's said. That's why I tried to express, be careful what you say, because it's public record. Closed meetings, you guys don't have to worry about closed meetings. That is city council. They talk about a person's character, competence, health, litigation, acquisition, sales, deployment, social, security, personnel information. So that part you don't even have to worry about. So yay, we get the easier end of the deal, which is great. Really, if this is great information, I will send it out again for you guys. But the biggest part is you guys are a public body. You have your meetings. We have them twice a month. In my opinion, that's very frequent, which is great. We're trying to keep it open for those developers and those, those things to come in regularly, so we don't have to have long meetings. However, we have to, again, make sure we're okay with what we're saying. It's public record. Things are recorded. We do meeting minutes. You guys approve them, or we make changes, because we're human, and I might hear one thing and I'll type it, and actually, it's not what it was said. This is what it was said, or this person's here, they weren't. So that's what this information is. I'll send it out just so you guys can have it again. That was our training for that aspect. So Dean, if you have to drop off, you're good. The other.
I read it while you were talking.
Oh, you're freaking amazing. Thank you. So I'll let Laurie know we're all done. We're gonna start having a little bit of trainings at the beginning to kind of help us with what stuff might be on our agenda. For example, the idea came, you guys have a lot on your plate, and I love your questions. And sometimes it's like, well, can we do this, or what's our role? To kind of help refresh and kind of have it fresh in your mind. For example, if we had a rezone, I might say, okay, our quick training moment for the beginning is legislative items. What's your role? What things do, as the city, want you guys to look at, concerns? It's not saying don't ask questions, okay? That's not what I'm saying. I'm helping you guys to know what your role is, what we really want as a city. Granted, that's what you guys, help come up with. We want your input. So are you guys fine if we do that? And then after, we'll follow up, with how things went, or do we need to change things? I just want to help you guys feel more comfortable as planning commissioners and help you guys have the knowledge that you need to feel comfortable with your decisions.
So Jill, I've got a question. So would that be recorded, or that too would be recorded?
Yep. Everything is actually recorded from.
Anytime we're meeting together, it is recorded.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can I make the recommendation that we keep the training at the end? That way, if there are people that tune in for specific reasons or agenda items, they're not stuck with a 15 or 20 or 25-minute training session.
That's why it would only be a 5 minute, hey, this is what it is. Remember that we're going to have some items that are legislative. This is your role. You're recommending to the city council. It's really just a bullet point really quick, and then the main training will be after. That's the idea.
I'm okay either way. I don't know if it's needed, but if I'm overruled by everybody, then we'll have it. I'm ambiguous. I really am. Doesn't matter.
I could go either way. My only comment on that is, does that skew the discussion or the thought of which way the committee might? You're saying the committee, hey, remember, this is all you should be talking about, and would it hamper the thought process of what this group might go? Or you might, I don't know. I don't want to hamper the way this group is. This group's been very good to be open and very talkative, and I just want to make sure we don't. I really like what you're training, and it keeps us focused, which is I like that thought.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very open to that, but I want to make sure that we don't dampen.
I know, I see what you're saying.
The collective discussion.
We don't want to sway it one way or another. Yeah, no, I understand.
And
I
Jill,
feel like
I
it's a
have
good idea. Oh, sorry. And it just reminds me of kind of like Bill did a little bit of that. Like he'd say, hey, just to remind you, this is what this is. And then we would proceed with what it was. Like it just wasn't, it was quick, and it just kind of kept us like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what we need to be focused on. I liked it. So I continue.
Well, and the thought I had, Jill, and maybe it's not a training per se, maybe actual training still remain at the end of the agenda, but maybe it's an addition of a slide, just clarifying kind of what the process is for the item, what the planning commission's role is. So if it's a recommending body to the council, or if they're, the land use authority on a different determination. And I mean, just also informational for the public too, to understand where an item is going. And I will just say, obviously we don't want to hamper any questions, but your role is very specifically described in state law. And sometimes, and I don't feel that since I've been here, this has happened at all, but past planning commissions that I've been with, and when there's been like legal disputes and different things, it's really challenging when you know, the items have gotten really off track, because then you have to justify, well, that wasn't the reason for the decisions being made the way that they were. And so it really is a defined scope in state law. And I think maybe, Jill, I don't know how you feel about that, but maybe just a slide clarifying, this is what the planning commission's role is with this. This is what we're asking you to look at. And again, not to limit or inhibit any of the discussion, because this group has such good discussion, but more just kind of focusing it.
Right. I like the way you worded it, clarification. That's really what it is. It's just more of clarification what your role is and what that type of whether it's administrative or legislative. It's just really just clarification.
So you've been doing that recently over the last few months on the agenda items. You spell that out, and I greatly appreciate that.
Right.
And so that's good. I mean, I don't know if we need anything in addition to that, unless you want to make it into the official record that we're presenting a slide as to what our responsibilities are.
I'll probably just put it on the agenda and just reiterate it. And that if that's fine with you, I just don't want to overstep and make things frustrating or confusing. I want to help.
I think what you've done on the agenda has been perfect. I think it helps all of us to see exactly what we're doing.
Okay.
If it's legislative, administrative, if it goes to city council, if it's ours. I mean, you spell that right out on the agenda, so I greatly appreciate that.
Okay.
I have really appreciated the emails spelling that out. And if you feel it would be beneficial in that email to even spell it out a little further, I always read those emails to refresh my memory and to try and incorporate it. So I think that's a valuable tool.
And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Sarah.
I have to unmute myself. There we go. Yeah, well, my son's telling me you could just press that, Mom. That would be better. Anyway, so just a couple of things. I don't know if you guys noticed in your city's newsletter or on Facebook that the council is putting out a survey just to kind of gauge the public's basic need for fiber. And I'm kind of sad that Dean jumped off and whatever. I wanted to hear his thoughts of, you know, fiber versus 5G and what the future may be in is. So maybe that should be considered in the discussion moving forward. But anyway, sorry.
So Sarah, I don't know if you was around. I don't know if any of us was around. Utopia.
Yeah.
Came from the Provo area, and I know it's in Brigham City. I know it's in Layton. It's not in Pleasant View. Mm-hmm. Could we tie into it at this point?
They have actually approached the city, and that was one of the things that prompted the conversation. But we haven't made any, you know, contracts or anything like that. We're starting the process of you know, informing the public of, is there a need? And I think that we probably all know the answer to that. And then from the need, how do you want that to look? What type of role do you want the city to play, if you want the city to play a role in that situation? So yes, there's lots of avenues. There's also TVOX, there's Utopia, there's CenturyLink, there's lots of different people who have infrastructure within our city. Comcast does as well. So just moving forward, if you get a chance to fill out that survey, please do. There's also, I don't know if you've noticed, conversations, just so you know what the city council has approached North Ogden City and asked for conversations about the potential closure of, you know, the end of Pleasant View Drive. That was somewhat of a discussion on Facebook, so that you are aware and you can let people know that we're moving forward and having, you know, starting some discussion with them, and just to see if what we can do. If there's a better solution, potentially, it is their decision, you know, as a city.
Are they open for further discussion? It's my understanding
They seem to be open for further discussion. I don't think I'm stepping out of line by saying that, Amy, would you say?
No, I think that there is a willingness to sit down a little bit further to discuss what our options are and possibly maybe some alternative solutions. So I don't know where things will go or kind of how this will evolve, but I know that we did have some council members attend one of their meetings a few weeks back, and from that we have heard a willingness to, at the very least, have just, you know, some basic city leadership sit down together and go through some ideas. So
Right. Yeah, there's
So Pleasant
definitely,
Drive, it's a busy road.
it
It feeds a
is.
lot of residents.
It is, and it definitely affects their city as well as ours. And there was some concern about the, you know, the what seemed to be the inevitability of them closing that off permanently. And so that hinged on a lot of what ifs for their city that they haven't solidified. So we're just grateful that they're willing to enter in some talks with us and hopefully come to a good solution.
But was it their plan that they would close off that road and force
Yes.
everybody onto the road that's west of the shopping center and then on to 2700 North?
Yes.
That would be ugly. That would
It
be
would
really
be
ugly.
there was a lot of what ifs with that. They would have to have UDOT's approval for a light there, and you know, to have a left-hand turn, and there, you know, I guess the best word then that I could use right now is it's unfortunate that it maybe got to this point without some more of the conversations that we probably should have had or could have had, but we just got caught unaware. That's all. But that's okay. We're grateful that we're able to have some conversations with them now. And so,
Well, actually, I don't know why they're stopping at 2850. I thought the original plan was to go up to 3100. So
I think eventually they will, but I don't think they have funding for that.
And I think there's, oh, sorry, Jen.
They were gonna have it as a phased approach.
Yeah.
So we all know how phased approaches are. Sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's
Right.
material. It's, you know, they don't want to do everything in one shot because then that whole road would be a mess. So
There were several things. And so they have been talking, you know, that we knew that they were going to do some construction for quite some time, but we didn't know exactly all the details. So just so that you as residents know that we are entering into some conversations with them, which is good. And so hopefully we can come to some good conclusions. And something that I don't know if I mentioned last time, but I might have, but Amy and Jill have met with Chris Roybal and Holland Eubank and finishing up with, you know, following up with some of the things, we'll call them assignments, if you will, that Chris gave us at the last meeting that we had, so that, you know, after we provide that information for our parcels and things like that on 2700, we can then resume, you know, with a targeted approach with our city council and planning commission moving forward and, you know, really continually pushing economic development in those key areas. And so, and we also had our kickoff Founders Day meeting, and we have a follow-up meeting this next Thursday. This next Thursday. We're moving forward like it's normal, and we'll see how it goes. We know what we can do at the very least, but we're trying to move forward with what we would like to do at the very most. So with the parade and the salmon bake, and we will be the fireworks probably won't go back up to the field since they have their new hoity-toity field now. It's ruined all the fun for us. We can't take all of our fun stuff on there, but we'll keep the fireworks big and awesome, and, you know, bring back the band and hopefully do it at Barker Park like that. So anyway, there's some things going on.
are we done with the monthly joint meetings with the city council? We was going to do that monthly for a while, and then we was going to do it quarterly.
well, we want to make sure when we do those, we want to make sure we get as much worth out of them instead of just going over and
A targeted approach of what do we want to accomplish with this meeting and have it make sense, you know, this meeting that moves to this meeting. And I think my understanding was, and for a while they were meeting there monthly. I think unless there's a need, we'll probably do it more quarterly. Unless there was a need, then we would move into, you know, oh, we have this, it's time is of the essence, let's meet this next month too. So that,
Yeah,
I don't
Sarah,
think
that's
that means-
exactly correct. And I guess just to piggyback on that, sorry, did I interrupt you?
no, I was just going to say, we don't want to have meetings to have meetings.
Right. Right, and that's exactly correct. And I think when different specific items come forward, then we'll have meetings on those items. And we did have that great initial meeting with Colin and with Chris, and we have a lot of work to get done to kind of get up to where they'd like us to be, and that's great. And Jill's already done a phenomenal job at getting us a lot of progress with that. But there's just, it's really neat kind of the way, you know, you break down the different properties and help people understand what they can do on them and what their options are. And so we're working on those kind of portfolios, I guess, for those different properties, and really to help highlight those to not only a county economic development level, but also to the state. And so there's a lot more to come on that, and we're really excited.
It'll be good.
How are
It
we
will
doing
be
with,
really
how are
good.
we doing with petitioning for Trader Joe's?
I would love that.
Ooh.
And it is exciting though. I know, I don't know if there's anything finalized, but Jill's been getting a lot of calls on a lot of the properties. And I think, you know, kudos to the Planning Commission and the City Council for your proactivity in rezoning 2700, because at the very least it's brought a lot of interest that may not have come before. You know, the rezone is a little bit of a hurdle to jump through. And so now it's all in place, and it's just finding the right fits for our community. And that's really exciting.
The mayor had a great suggestion of, when we can, invite those property owners who live on 2700, kind of have an open house style. We want to bring them in. We want to partner with them. We want to say, hey, this is what we would like to do. And we want to hear your thoughts. And now how can we do it together? How can we help you, you know, solicit, sell your property? And then in effect, it helps us too, as Pleasant View. So with COVID and that situation, it's been a little bit tricky that way, but as it seems to be kind of going in the right direction, that is also on the books to meet together and, you know, in a targeted approach with those property owners, and really be proactive with helping them get, you know, the property. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but John Hanson sold that parcel right next to Scooters on the east side. He has a big fat sold sign on that, on his sign. So I don't know who's coming in. We should have asked him. Dang it. I was on my phone.
We should have asked him. Well,
I know. We should have asked him who he got.
He's actually been calling and asking what type of, you know, he said so-and-so's wants to come in, can that work there? And so he's called me on multiple ones, so I don't know which one actually bought it. So I will tell you this. Amy and I are trying to come up with a good strategy to, when we do meet with those people, to have a game plan and say, okay, this is what we want to do, and this is how we want to get there. How can we help you? So, I mean, that way it's not just a, okay, what can we do? So that's one thing me and Amy are trying really hard to get to. She's just, you know, hitting the ground running since she got here. So
Oh my gosh.
we're working there. And
yeah.
really quick, you know, the one parcel that we were talking and kind of struggling with when we did that rezone, the one-way road. After that got finalized with City Council, I've had nothing but phone calls. I've had at least 5 a month. Hey, we're interested. This is what we're wanting to do. Can we do it? Yeah. Okay. Let me see if it pencils out. As a city, we're looking to see options on how we can make that one-way road a two-way road. So we're working, we're getting there. I've gotten a lot more phone calls on that piece than I've ever gotten. So, and we're working in the right direction. So, and you guys are one of the big pieces, and I appreciate you guys a lot.
It's been good.
Targets are all closing down. That broke my wife's heart.
Yes.
Going back on the road in North Ogden, can we, obviously we can make comments on it, even.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, and we own some property in North Ogden, so who can we contact, or where? Because I have a real concern with the safety. There is not a light in place. This is very premature to cut off a road that's safe, funnel people to one that frankly is dangerous.
Right.
We had a death there, what, a few years ago?
Yeah,
Right
my
in
girlfriend
that
said it
stretch,
either.
somebody pulling out and getting killed with an accident there. It's an extremely dangerous situation.
I must tell you that the permanent, right now it is temporary closed at the end of Pleasant View Drive, and they're working, from my understanding, a council member in North Ogden told me that to put in a temporary right-hand turn, and because what we were told when we went to the council meeting last week is that whole permanent closure hinges on whether or not they can get a light at the bottom of 300 West. And there's, talking to UDOT and their city council, there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect of whether or not that will actually happen. But
Too close, isn't it? Isn't it too close?
Okay, the strange thing about that from the family that had to put in the road between 27 and 2550, and it
Right.
had to be a certain width with a turning lane, and that we were told it's because they were putting a light in there. For them to say that the whole light situation, I don't know where they're coming from, because we were dictated what we had to do based on the fact they were putting in a light.
yeah, I'm not sure that I'm certainly that would be part of the conversations as as our councils meet with each other and our mayors meet. And so you asked if you could contact. I certainly, if you're a property owner and you're a resident of Pleasant View and this concerns you, feel free to reach out to their city administrator, John Call, their mayor, and the council members. And just, if you do reach out to them, I would do it more of a, share me your thoughts. Let me share my thoughts with you and have that respectful conversation about that. And just, more of a find out the details and then follow up with that. That's how I would approach it. But yes, absolutely. All on their city's website, all their information is listed, and that's public information. So I would encourage you to reach out if you'd like to. So.
Okay. Anybody have anything else?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Thank you. And a second? We are adjourned.
That motion.
Thank you. Appreciate all of you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, you guys.
See ya.
Bye.